you could never bake cookies prior to owning a Dirty Dough franchise, and you will never bake cookies after either, because it's irrelevant. You don't need to be a baking expert, right? So that's how I viewed it. As like, these are the 4 areas of barriers of entry to entrepreneurship. How do I lower all 4 of those to provide this opportunity to more people that maybe were scared to get into business, or maybe they didn't have the capital or the confidence or the skill? And it's like, let's open that up a little bit wider to again have a little bit more people, I guess, experiencing the fun that we're having over here at Dirty Dough.
Welcome to the Franchise Founders Podcast. We are on a mission to help aspiring entrepreneurs just like you take action through franchise ownership,
allowing you to obtain more financial freedom, time with family, and ultimately a business that can run on its own without you. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Founders Podcast. We have a really special guest with us here today. Excited to talk to him. But before that, Dan, my co-host, what's up, dude?
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. Just about to talk some cookies with our guest today, Bennett Maxwell with Dirty Dough. How you doing, man?
Good. I'm doing pretty good. Excited to be on the podcast.
All right. Well, I think what we typically start out with is, we don't usually do bios on the show. We want it to be a little more conversational than that. So we'll just flip it over to you and tell us a little bit about yourself. And most importantly, how did you get into franchising? Because obviously what we find for most people, you don't find franchising. Franchising kind of finds you. So how did that happen? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I've never been in the food or franchising till just last year, really. I was doing sales before that. So, I mean, right before the show, we were talking that's why I was always in California. I'd always move out there to do different sales. And then I was looking at, it was kind of a summer thing. Not kind of, it was. I would go for 4 to 5 months of the year, then come back and I wouldn't work the rest of the year. So in that off season, per se, I started looking into crumble and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, so my cousin was telling me that there's a good amount of money in it. So I was like, oh, I'd love to add to my sales income, right? And buy a franchise. So I started going down that path and I stopped as soon as it was owner operated. And I was like, I understand why you do that. I don't agree with it though. Like I don't want to buy my own job. Like that's just not what I'm looking to do. I don't want to replace my current income with a crumble franchise. I wanted to add to it, but that wasn't in their model. And again, there's a lot going on in a crumble store, weekly rotating flavors, a lot of different inventory, a lot of employees that you have to hire. Everything's done by hand. Everything's weighed by hand. Like I could definitely see why they require that. But that was kind of my first taste of it, I guess 3 years just looking into it. And then the opportunity came. Dirty Dough was started in Arizona State University out of Tyler's apartment. And he's a guy that, yeah, there you go. He's a guy that I went to high school with. So he posts on Facebook like, hey, I have a cool cookie company. I'm doing delivery only. I want to get a retail storefront. So I'm looking for some money. So I ended up connected with him, gave him a little bit of money so he could open up the storefront. Because again, that's back to my investment strategy, right? That's a little bit more passive for me. So I gave him the money. I'm in San Diego area at the time running a solar company. Crumble opens up out in Point Loma. They're crushing it. And I'm like, Tyler, let's franchise. I'm going to be your first franchisee. I'm going to have a store out here. It's going to be awesome. And he's like, guys, yeah, let's do it. A few months later, he's like, no, I'm not going to franchise. Actually want to sell the business. I want to get out. Want to move back to Utah, all of this stuff. So I'm like, man, I've never been in food, never been in franchising, but, and I live in San Diego and I run a solar company full time, right? So if I could buy this little cookie company out of Arizona and refine the processes to make it so simple that I don't have to be the owner operator, then man, how many other business owners are there like me that can fall into the same model? So that was the idea, is buy the company and make it the most simplistic food franchise that exists. And that's kind of when we went to work and building the system. So you look at Crumble's model and they are amazing. They kill it. They do these large cookies, multi-flavored, served warm, all of that. And then you look at kind of the OG cookie companies, Mrs. Fields, Great American Cookie Company, Insomnia. Those cookie companies have been around for 45, and 20 years, all have multiple hundred locations still. So it's like, well, what are they doing to last so long? Because the last thing I wanted to do was start a franchise, sell a bunch of franchises because we're in an up market and everybody's going crazy, $1 million+ average unit volume sales. Like that's what Crumbl is experiencing. But is it still going to be like that in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, right? And when it goes back down to earth, are my franchisees still profitable? So let's look at models that have proven that. And those are the three that I mentioned. And what do they all do? Centralized production. So can we do a centralized production model to lower cost, increase quality control, lower cost of goods, lower labor, lower ongoing costs, right? With a smaller lease payment, lower startup costs, all of that. But while participating in this giant warm cookie, multi-flavored craze that's going on. And we found a special machine that allowed us to do that. So we do the only 3-layer cookie that I've ever seen. The 3-layer cookie, it's a peanut butter cookie on the outside, and you break it open. There's a chocolate dough in the middle, and in the very center, there's hot fudge. So, and that's all pre-manufactured. So if you're a franchisee, you're getting a box, a case of cookies. And like Christian, Dan, I'm going to train you on how to run a dirty dough. You grab a speed rack. It's a little rack that holds cookie sheets that has wheels on it, right? Because I didn't know what a speed rack was a year ago. You wheel that into the walk-in cooler. Okay. You grab 15 cookies. Pick your flavor. Let's do chocolate chip. Place them 3x5 on the cookie sheet. Go put it in the oven. Press start. The oven's already pre-programmed. Same time, fan speed, and temperature for all cookies. Once it beeps, take it out, right? And then you throw it in a box and you serve it to the customer. Like, where are you going to mess up as far as the quality goes? I mean, maybe you forget to hear the timer. Maybe you trip when you're walking. I mean, it's pretty hard, right? I mean, obviously it can still be done, but like that's the store that we've created. So we get to participate in these high sales of these giant gourmet cookies, but we have the robust back end of the Mrs. Fields Great American Cookie, Insomnia Cookie that has been proven to work for decades and weather those recessions. So that's kind of what led us to where we're at. Then obviously I'm not the experienced guy, so I hired a CEO, hired really high level people in each category, our logistics, our food production, started selling franchises in December. We just opened up our 3rd store. We have 2 more opening this week, another one next week. And I don't know, maybe 30 leases that franchisees have signed, 120 plus locations that we've signed on so far, franchises. So we should have another 30 probably by the end of the year, and then quite a few next year. So that's where we're at. We're in the cookie world now, from door-to-door sales to solar, and then now cookies, just the natural next step after solar.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's what I've heard. It's usually how it works when you get into solar.
Yep.
My head's spinning with questions. Who's going first, me or you, Christian?
You, Dan. I mean, I have a bunch too, but I'll let you take it away.
Well, it was an awesome story of how you explained it. So basically, you're doing sales. You want to be a franchisee. You're told you can't be a franchisee kind of last minute. You have the opportunity to buy the whole business instead. You you decide to franchise. You see the opportunity for more than just yourself, for business owners to own the business once it's been made simplified. But what you said that I thought was really incredibly impressive was you knew that what your skill is, and you hired a team. Even though you own this business, you right away you found yourself a CEO and some other executive members. What led you to do that? What was the thought process in right away knowing you needed to bring on a leadership team?
The E-Myth Revisited is a great business book, and I did that with my solar company because I teamed up with my brother. So I started the solar company. We had our first recruit January of 2020. I purchased this business in January of 2021. So a year after starting my solar company. And how was I able to do that? Well, I worked myself out of the solar company. So starting a business, that's always, how do I get out of the business as quickly as possible so I can work on it rather than in it? So I learned a lot of that from my brother, from that book. Like, we did the whole activity, and the activity is, where's my business going to be in 3 years, in 5 years? And then you build a whole organization chart. So it's just me and my brother sitting down, and it's like, okay, well, we need a CEO, and a COO and a CMO and a CFO. And then we need a regional sales manager and a VP of sales and a sales rep and all of these different positions. And you just plug your head in all of those. And it's like, why am I doing this? There's only 2 of us. Why am I building out 15 different positions, 30 different positions? And then you start working on each position, working up the standard operating procedures, and then you replace yourself. So I did sales reps first, right? And then I hired my first sales rep. And then I was the sales manager, and I developed the model to be a manager. And then I promoted somebody to be a manager. And then I was now the regional salesperson, right? And then I replaced myself at that point as well. So that's, anyways, it worked with solar. We ended up selling a few months after that. So we grew it, built it, sold it within 18 months. Had a great time with it. So with Dirty Dough, it was going to be the same thing, but I needed to shortcut it a little bit because I see this as we have a window. So rather than me like being the CEO first and creating the standard operating procedures on how to be a CEO of a franchise chain with a food brand, and then hiring somebody, I just hired somebody that already been there, done that. It's Jill Summer Hayes. She started Maui Wowie Smoothies and Coffee, 83, ran it for 35 years, had just under 700 locations at its peak, sold it, and then took another company from a concept to 90 locations in a few years. I'm like, she's not only done it once, she's done it twice. Like, she's going to be way better at this than me. And then food production. I've never been in food production. I hired a guy that built it for another company. He took it from 0 to 70 million in food production, warehousing in 2 years. And then logistics, because now we're a logistics company. Like on the back end, I'm explaining the simplistic dream model for a franchisee. On the corporate end, it's millions of dollars investing before we even have a freaking store open. And we're a production company, we're a logistics company, we're a franchise support company, we're all of that. So it's a lot harder on us, but it's to make it easier. So our logistics guy, he had a logistics company that had 50 million last year. He sold that company. So it's like, if you could do it for them, obviously you could do it for a handful of stores, right? And trying to hire people to where we want to be rather than where we're at has been the strategy.
Yeah, start with the end in mind. And I love that you're all in on cookies, man. You sold the solar company, all in on cookies. I mean, it's a great industry to be in. But it's also a testament to the fact that, and this should alleviate a lot of the fears of people in the audience that are thinking about buying a franchise, whether it's their first or whether it's they're diversifying their portfolio of brands. You don't need to have industry background. You can learn it. You just have to surround yourself by the right people and partner with the right franchisor who has those support systems in place. And what I like so much about how simple the model is for you guys, you're talking about centralized production, so easy that just about anybody can make the damn cookies. So I'm imagining that hiring and training is easier for that reason. And so
just staffing in general, you have half the employees, right? Because now you don't have teenagers mixing dough. And guess what they do? They mess up. And 2 things that can happen when they mess up. One, they throw it away and boom, lots of waste. Or worse, they still serve the cookies, right? And they're just flat or they're undercooked or whatever it is. Like that's gone. Now you don't need to buy mixers either. Now you don't need to store raw ingredients so your space can be smaller. Now you don't deal with flour. So guess what? Your space is way cleaner. But the biggest difference is you don't have to weigh cookies by hand. So if you worked at a Dirty Dough or a Crumble or a Chip or any of these companies, like we called it the position, the baller. And Dan, you'd come in for 5 hours, you'd be slightly bent over, you get several bins of dough, and you'd grab the dough, put it on a scale, little pieces of dough till it weighs just right. Then you're gonna roll it on the table, form it by hand, put it on a cookie sheet. You have to do that for every single cookie for 5 hours, and your back's killing you. Yeah. You're gonna last with us for 2 weeks to 8 weeks, and then you're gone. And then I'm gonna have to put out ads, and then I'm gonna have to interview, then I'm gonna have to train, I'm gonna have to give out more uniforms. Once we switched to this centralized production, the hiring got so much easier. The retention through the roof, which just brings down all of those other costs because the labor is probably the biggest difference. Crumble right now is requiring 75 to 80 employees day one, like that need to be onboarded. Now keep in mind their average unit volume according to their FDD did 1,687,000 last year. So like they're crushing it. But man, that's a lot of employees, right? Compared to we're closer to 10 to 20 employees, depending on the volume that the store is doing. So big, huge difference there, much less than half the labor, to really simplify it.
It's incredible. So I have a question going back to this executive team component, because, we've got a lot of listeners on our show that are potential franchisees or current franchisees. We've also got a lot of franchise founders, hence the name Franchise Founders. And I have so many friends that are franchisors that have so many units, they're making good money. And I always say, hey, if you're ready for your next level, why not bring in a CEO or COO? Whatever that costs, what is that worth as far as your freedom to elevate to the next level in your business? Without getting into like the details of your compensation of your team, can you give an idea? Like if I'm a founder of a franchise and I want to bring on a key member that can run the day to day, any advice on structuring that compensation plan?
Yeah, so we did like a mid six figures base with the rest based on commission. So it was kind of like, hey, how much do you need to make? Multiple six figures. Okay, cool. Well, let's do a base plus commission type deal. And
commission on, store sold or
store sold. Yeah. And we've sold 120 in 8 months. Right. So like we're well overperforming on our commissions. But that's what we did. And the way that I made the decision is like, well, I know what I'm worth. I could go knock on somebody's door and go sell solar or pest control or whatever. I could go generate money today if I need to. So what if I hire her and she doesn't pay for herself because sales are slow, or it takes a few months, it takes 3 months to ramp up, or 6 months, whatever. I'll just go knock doors and I'll pay her salary, and I just won't work in the business. Because if there's only going to be one of us working in the business, I'd rather have it be her because she's way better at this than me. So I was 100% like willing to I will go back to solar as a sales rep just to knock doors to pay for her, because
pay for her. Yeah.
I mean, who's going to buy a franchise from an idiot? Me, right? Like nobody's going to buy a franchise. It's like, well, look at Jill. Like she's done this. She has franchisees that have been with her that have renewed 3 times. Like she knows how to do it. Are you going to trust her? Or are you going to trust me? Well, you're going to trust her. And I know that because I know sales, and that's going to increase my sales. Right. And then we brought on a great board of advisors as well. Our senior advisor, his company was called InfoSpace. It was valued at 30 plus billion at its peak. Amazing in the entrepreneur space. He led Brigham Young University, BYU out of Utah, their entrepreneurship program, and they're top 5 in the nation every year. Right. So like he was the man. We got Steve Hart on our board. He owns Property Management Inc., largest property management franchisor in the nation. Eric Van Horn, I think that's how we got in contact. Right. He has his podcast, and we're in his mastermind group, and getting these high level people. And it's like, hey, don't trust Bennett because Bennett's a dummy, but look at the team, right? These are the guys that are going to be really building everything. I'm just trying to put together the team.
You put the team together. I'm laughing now, not to turn it on me, but I just sold my company recently, and I hired a whole new team for the new business I have. And it's a team of people for a non-existent business. Like we don't have any revenue yet. And people are like, what are you doing? And it's a similar mindset. But what I thought was funny is like after the sale of my last business during the transition, like passwords. Well, what are these passwords? And we need all them. All the passwords are all over the place. I'm a mess. Like, there's operations manuals scattered. And someone was like, I can't believe you didn't have these things. And I realized that, I can believe I don't have those things because I'm like you, I'm a dummy. But in this business now, I've got like just a person whose job is to like keep all these things together. So it's like you know your strengths. You're clearly a great. It sounds to me like we just met, but you put the people together. You put the pieces together of the puzzle. You're that sounds like one of your skills.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. Let me do what I'm good at. And let you do what you're good at as well. And it was all big picture, like 100% committed. We went kind of slow at the beginning. Like, okay, well, let's test the balling machine, right? Let's install that in the store. And it was running out of the Tempe location. Like it wasn't through a warehouse. And boom, freaking turnover was like almost non-existent. We did lose an employee every few months now, because it was just such an easy job. And it's like, well, that was good. And we just started one little machine, right? And then it's like, okay, now let's sign a lease on a warehouse. And now let's start producing cookies from there. And Now we just signed a lease on a much larger warehouse that'll produce cookies for about 150 stores. But it's kind of like we were fully committed, but not to say that we just threw in all the money. Like we still went through the verification and validation process as we were building it up. But from the very beginning, I'm like, if this is going to work, I need an all-star team. I need a big old warehouse, and I need millions of dollars worth of machinery. So let's get there as quickly as we can.
Well, I love it. It's the old quote that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think there's a certain awareness and a certain humility you have to have. And I think a fatal error a lot of entrepreneurs make is they let their ego get in the way, and they want to be the guy that's like leading the charge and doing everything. They want to be perceived as the expert and like this business guru who knows all things and can do it all themselves. And I think that's just a dumb way to do it. And so you've done the exact opposite. You're building it the right way, and you're aware of what your strengths are. You double down on your strengths, and then you hire for those areas that you're not that great at. So like Dan said, I'm not an operations guy. I can be the visionary. I can, I like building teams and talking to people, but I don't want to be the guy that's putting together an ops manual.
Yeah.
But, and it's not my strength, and it's not what I want to do, but there are people that love doing that and that are really great at it. So it's smart to do that. So I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about shifting gears, back to the model a little bit. So obviously the centralized production, better retention because it's so standardized. Brand consistency is obviously going to be on point. So you essentially have, in order for it to be semi-absentee, I mean, how semi-absentee can the model be? You're putting a general manager at the store there, running a lot of the day-to-day operations. I mean, so how semi-absentee is it?
Yeah.
And then, what are the owner's responsibilities for the most part?
So we require 3 weeks that the owner's present for the first 3 weeks. And this is something, again, I'd never been in food. I'm running a business full-time out of San Diego, and I did this. We hired a 22-year-old to manage the store. She has like 8 employees. It's not that much going on. That wouldn't be considered a manager in any other company, right? That's a shift lead at best if you're overseeing 8 people. So how I managed it, I would fly in once a month. I would try to get an early flight, and I'd always fly back that same day. I would go into the store. I would meet with the manager. I would check out the store, and I'm like, oh, I don't like that. Or those cookies look weird, or whatever. You're like, hey, you need to dust that. I'm taking pictures of everything as I'm talking to her in person. Then I fly home that same night. I used a task management system at the time. It was Asana. Now we switched to ClickUp, but it doesn't matter, right? You just need something where I can upload pictures, add a written description, put a due date, assign it to my manager, and then she can go upload pictures when it's complete. And it's like, that's how we manage the store. One day a month, I would pop in there, and we'd have an hour meeting a week with the manager. So
wow,
that was with me with no experience. And yeah, we hit some roadblocks, but it's like, have I ever worked in the store? No, I've never worked in the store. Have I ever made a batch of cookies? No, I've never made a batch of cookies. Because how can I? I'm in San Diego, right? Like, oh, somebody didn't show up. Okay, manager, we'll figure it out. That's what you're here for, And it's worked. She's been excellent to do that. So it's just, again, there's not much going on. And then like, hey, we don't release a schedule every week. We do a forever schedule. If you need time off, you got to ask for that in advance. And you just throw it in the group chat, and then other employees could pick that up. So it's also structuring the system so the managers a little bit easier. And then implementing checklists, morning, evening, night checklists that I can monitor digitally. And if I want to, I can also check. They just check that they, check the box of they took out the trash. Let me check my cameras and see if they actually did, right? So remotely, I was able to manage it pretty well.
It's incredible. And so you essentially started out as a semi-absentee owner. I mean, you're still overseeing the high level operations, but you're not in the store. You're not making cookies like you said, and that's not what you're expecting your franchisees to do
check out
either.
a customer, I don't know how to, and I'll tell you why. Because I went there yesterday, and I have a code when I'm buying, because this is a franchise, so I'm going to buy the cookies when I'm giving them to somebody I was meeting there, but I have a code to get a discount. And I tell the employee she's brand new, she doesn't know how to do it, and I was like, let me see. I couldn't figure it out either. She's like, I thought you own this. I was like, I do, but I don't know how to do that. So anyways, I was like, I guess I'm paying full price for these cookies. But yeah, I mean, again, you don't need to do it if you have people in place that are doing it for you. So and it kind of goes like big picture of Dirty Dough. And we don't need to get into it a ton, but it's all about mental health. Dirty dough means the dough's dirty. It's what's on the inside that matters. We focus on the inside of the cookie. It's a dirty, messy cookie that's meant to be enjoyed just like life. We don't want the perfect cookie, right? That the perfect Instagram life is what's causing the mental health crisis. So we're fighting against that, saying it doesn't need to be perfect for it to be enjoyed. Like you could find joy and fulfillment now. And we're doing like a nonprofit on the back end that we're setting up, building wellness centers in schools, and then we fund like a proactivity, like a proactive mental health approach, like service for all of our employees. And at a corporate level, we pay for all of our franchisees, so you can get into guided meditation or online therapy sessions that we're paying for at a corporate level. That's goal number one. Goal number two is lowering the barrier of entry to entrepreneurship. I'm super passionate and I love business. It's freaking fun, and cookies are fun as well, right? Like what I'm doing, I love what I'm doing, and I want as many people as possible to experience with that, especially looking at like, man, Mrs. Fields was started in 1977 and they still have 200 locations. Like that's crazy. That's generational wealth. That changes not just one person's life, that's changing a family, generationally. So it's like, that's what I want more people to participate in. So I view entrepreneurship, you need a game plan, you need time, money, and expertise. Well, the game plan, that should be given to you if it's a franchise, right? So check. Time. I just outlined how much time you need to run one of these dirty doughs, right? Like very minimal while I was running another business. So greatly reduce the barrier of entry as far as time goes. Money, we're half the cost compared to like the average crumble, because you're not buying all the mixers. You need a much smaller square footage, a much smaller build out. And then the expertise. You don't need to be an expert baker. You could never bake cookies prior to owning a dirty dough franchise, and you will never bake cookies after either, because it's irrelevant. You don't need to be a baking expert, right? So that's how I viewed it, as like, these are the 4 areas of barriers of entry to entrepreneurship. How do I lower all 4 of those to provide this opportunity to more people that maybe were scared to get into business, or maybe they didn't have the capital or the confidence or the skill? And it's like, let's open that up a little bit wider to again have a little bit more people, I guess, experiencing the fun that we're having over here at Dirty Dough.
All right, I'm in. Send me the franchise agreement.
I didn't know that's what I was doing on this podcast, man.
I'm half kidding, half serious, man. I'm in. I'm in on you. I really agree with everything you've said, and I think that obviously you're being humble when you say you're a dummy. Only maybe sometimes, because you obviously know what you're doing as you build this. I had a question. Shifting gears to like the franchise. I mean, 130 locations. Sorry, I believe you said 130. Sorry,
I think I said
130 by 121 now.
130.
How did you find all of these great candidates, these franchisees? That's incredible in such a short period of time.
We found them by having an amazing team and an amazing model. I mean, we haven't paid $1 for marketing. So meaning they found us and they were attracted to us because of what we've been building. And it's like, go find me another franchise with a more experienced team we have 3 locations. We're tiny, right? Go find me a better franchise team on the executive level than what we've built anywhere with the company our small. I mean, you can't, right? Go find a more efficient model out there in the food industry. I'm like, I don't think you can. So because of that, it's like yesterday we sold 6 to, Colin. And I remember a few weeks ago, my buddy that I did sales with, he goes, hey, my brother's interested in franchising, what info? And I just sent him a Calendly link to book a call with the salesperson. Never even spoke with them. Then the salesperson yesterday, hey, we closed another 6. And I'm like, oh, who was it? He's like, oh, it was Colin. And so I call up Dylan, his brother. I'm like, dude, thanks for that lead. And I haven't talked with Dylan in years. He just texted me, right? But he saw what I was doing on social media. So I should say social media, and that's my personal social media, not the companies. We're not doing any social media as a company as far as franchising yet. It's all just been my personal social media, people seeing that, and then word of mouth. And then people just apply, either message me online or apply. Now, this Crumble lawsuit has got us, it was last week, they were looking at the previous 30 days, which was pretty much the 30 days of the lawsuit, and we had 340 organic franchise inquiries on the website. That's all from the lawsuit. Everybody's like, we always, how'd you hear about us? The lawsuit. So I owe a lot of credit to our team on the back end, but I also have to give a little bit of credit to Crumble, because that's where a lot of our sales are coming from now.
Let's get into this. Let's get into the dirty. So what's the story? If you're able to share a little bit.
Yeah. So in May, we got word that, anyways, Crumble went straight to a lawsuit, and they're like, we're suing you. And it's like, okay, what do you want us to change? Like, what do you want us to change? Like, usually you send a cease and desist. Like, these are the items that we think, it's causing confusion or whatever. It's violating our trademarks, and change X, Y, Z. And you start negotiating from there. And in fact, Chip did that to Crumble, and Crumble changed their logo. No lawsuit, no lawyer fees, nothing like that. They go straight to a lawsuit. And I'm like, okay, what does that tell me? Obviously, I don't know these guys' intentions, but it's probably $1 billion company saying we can burn holes in your pockets financially, right? It doesn't matter who's right. If I can outlast the legal fees, then it doesn't. You can't win if you don't have money, right? I mean, that's what it is. So that was kind of my initial impression. But we're like, they have no merit to this lawsuit. The lawsuit, it was pretty funny. Like they legitimately put pictures of their cookie with sprinkles and put our cookie of sprinkles next to it. And they're like, these look similar. And then we serve ice cream in a bowl. So we do a warm cookie and then ice cream on top. And they don't do that, but they do serve ice cream, right? But man, do those ice creams look similar when they put them next to each other. I mean, it's a bowl with ice cream. Come on. Like, ours has a cookie in it, yours doesn't. But on the top, it both looks ice cream. The funny thing is, go look at the timestamps for both of or their Facebook cover picture has cookies and ours has cookies. Wow. Go look at the timestamp. We posted ours months before them. And it's like, wait, you're going to use an example of you copying us as us copying you? Like, who's your attorney? This is silly. So a lot of other things. And then they accused Dirty Dough of being founded in 2019 by a former Crumble employee. Started working for Crumble in March of 19, ended in June of 19, founded Dirty Dough. Well, that doesn't line up with the news articles that were released in 2018 showing that Dirty Dough is already selling cookies. It's like, that was a 10-second Google search, guys. Like, do your due diligence before you file a lawsuit. So we felt like nothing came from it. This was filed in May in the state of Utah before we even had a store in the state of Utah. So, I mean, whatever that means. How are they suing us here when we're not even selling cookies here? And then KSL picked it up, which is a local news channel, and said, hey, Crumble's Pick is suing these other two companies. And then it started kind of just blowing up, and other people and dozens of attorneys are reaching out and like, dude, this is a joke. Like, they have no chance of winning. So we'll see. I mean, we still have to deal with it, but it's kind of the David versus Goliath. We had one store when they sued us. Now we have 3, right? And they opened up 70 stores this month alone. You know what I mean? So it's like, come on, guys. Let's just compete. Don't take us to court over something stupid because you want to see how much money you can burn from a startup. So that's my opinion on it. I think it's all silly.
Yeah, and could it be that they're threatened that you did 120 franchise sales in 8 months?
I mean, yeah, I definitely think our model is superior to theirs. Our break-even point is so much less than theirs that it's lowering the risk for those entrepreneurs as well. But I mean, we're not the only companies they sued. So is it because they're threatened, or they just sued 10 companies at a time? I mean, I don't know. I think they're just trying to squash competition. Anybody who sells cookies with sprinkles on it, like, freaking watch out. Crumble's coming for you. Like, who's going to imagine if Domino's send a letter to freaking Little Caesars or Pizza Hut and they're like, look at our pepperoni pizzas side by side. That looks awfully similar. It's like, yeah, and so does every pizza out there, because it's a pizza and it's a hamburger and it's a donut. Like, they look the same because they're the same product. So anyways, it's kind of weird that they brought up the pictures in there, and I'm like, come on, guys. And then
yeah, it seems. Go ahead.
They're complaining about the box as well. Like, we use a rectangular box to serve cookies. So how many options do you have to serve cookies? A rectangular box or a square box? Now, if you're serving 4 cookies and I'm going to give them to an Uber Eats driver who's going to drive them somewhere and I don't want the warm cookies with drizzles on top to smash and cross contaminate, am I going to use a rectangular box or a square box? Rectangular box, because it's for functionality. And that's why it's existed. And dozens of companies have been using them for decades, but they're like, that's ours. And I'm like, really? Like, is anybody confusing a blue box with a pink box? I don't know. I don't think so. Go find me somebody. And then the weekly rotating is the other thing that they called out. Like, we rotate our flavors weekly, and so do you. So you're copying us. And it's like, show me your trade dress or your trademark on a weekly rotating flavor from a company that's 5 years old, from something that's been done for decades. Like, you guys don't own that. You guys copied other companies and then now are suing people for copying that. I'm like, no, we're not even copying you. We're copying the companies you copied. So anyways, those are kind of the big points of the lawsuit. And it is what it is right now. But I think it has been the best thing for our business, which was pretty unexpected.
Well, yeah, I mean, all press is good press, right? And if all these people see all the talk on LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere else, they see the billboards in Utah, right? Yeah. It gets your name out there. And then when they realize that the business model itself is highly differentiated, I mean, I don't know the exact cost to the total investment to get started for you versus a Crumble, but I would imagine that if it is, you said it's around half to get one store open. So that presents a lot of multi-unit opportunities as well. Yeah.
And that's almost exclusively what we're doing is multi-unit. Crumble's new FDD, I think it was like 347 on the low end to 690 something on the high. So 350 to 700, right? Anecdotally speaking, I know dozens of franchise owners, and it's like 450 to 500 typically. These Utah stores are opening up for around 200, right? Give or take 20, 30 grand.
It's incredible.
The difference is definitely substantial there.
You won't be the leader you'll be next year without having gone through this now, right? You'll be an even better leader of your organization. Every entrepreneur has to get a bloody nose or a couple knee scrapes. It's not fun, I'm sure, when it's such a large company, but you just keep doing the right thing and swimming in your lane, not looking to the left or the right? Like Michael Phelps, I think he just swims and you'll just keep innovating. How about a circular box instead? I don't know. Or a heart. I don't know.
We posted that on LinkedIn and, just joking. And I tagged the other cookie company and I'm like, well, Chip has the square box. Crumble has the rectangular box. Crave, you better pick your box before they're all taken, because everybody knows you're only allowed one shape of box per cookie company. And I posted like a star shaped box, a pyramid shaped box, a Tetris shaped box, just like poking fun. Like, come on, guys, this is so silly. Like, really, a box? Like if it was like a novelty box, cool. But a rectangular box, I'm like, you guys, this is silly. So it's a still lawsuit, and so we've been kind of poking fun at it a little bit.
I like it. It seems like you're having fun with the whole process.
Yeah, the billboards were also fun. Just to make little jokes. Say? There was one is let your taste buds be the judge. Another one is cookies so good we're being sued, and it has like a censored cookie on there. So that was kind of funny. We don't crumble.
Who came up with that? That's good.
Yeah, EKR Agency is our marketing company, and their creative guy Camden is freaking awesome. So, cookie. I mean, we don't file lawsuits. We just have better cookies. Was another one, because it's like, just compete with us, Crumble. Like, you guys are valued at billions of dollars, and we have a store open. Like, come on, just have a better product. Why are you trying? Anyways, and you kind of start seeing in their marketing, and they're like, oh, well, they do frozen dough, and we don't. It's like, okay, cool, And he posted about one of the owners was like, that's taking the easy way up route of doing the frozen dough because that's easier. And I'm like, I would beg to differ, because we spent a lot more money up front to make it way easier for our franchises on a corporate side. For it to be easier, it would be, hey, Dan, as a franchisee, you go figure it out. Like, go buy from Cisco, hire your own people, buy your own mixers, do your own quality control, weigh it by hand. Like, that's the easy way out, in my opinion, right? What we're doing is much harder. But yeah, it is. I mean, it's definitely frozen dough. But we kind of go back and forth a little bit with Crumble, and I'm just like, you guys do your thing, we'll do our thing, and I will applaud you guys on the way. And then, yeah, that's not happening. they're very
Do you
focused
get
on what we're
motivated
doing.
by?
And what was that?
I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you feel like you're motivated by it somewhat, or being told you can't do something, or as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the motivation comes from like, look how many people see this lawsuit and are giving us, hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars investing in this franchise model after they know about the lawsuit. Like that's kind of like the proof of the pudding, right? Like they're not threatened by it. We've sold dozens since the lawsuit. We've actually done a round of fundraising since the lawsuit, and we disclosed the lawsuit, and like nobody's affected by it. So seeing that, and I'm like, okay, I think we're onto something. I think that we're going to get through this lawsuit just fine, and we're actually going to be better, a lot better than had it not happened.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about the model is your goal is to make it easier for the entrepreneur, lower barrier to entry. They might fault you for having frozen dough, but again, easier for who? Are we going to make it easier for us as the franchisor and the corporate team, or are we going to make it easier for the franchisees and lower that barrier of entry and make their operating expenses lower, their headaches lower? Because that's why people buy a business. Like you mentioned at the top of the conversation, nobody wants to buy a job, and they want it where it's simple, it's easy, and there's a game plan that's laid out for them. So I love that you're making it easy for the entrepreneur. I love that there's a mission-driven component to it. The mental health obviously is there's a huge need for that in society. So I love that there's that. And then I haven't tried the cookies yet, but I'm sure they're fantastic, and cookies are fun. So what's not to like?
Yeah. I mean,
Didn't you say you're sending us after the podcast? I thought that was
send you guys over some cookies. That's definitely part of the deal. You look at, we did frozen taste tests, blind taste tests. You freeze it for 6 months, nobody knows the difference. Do it at your house. Make fresh cookies and throw it in the freezer for 3 months, and then go back to it, or overnight. Like baking items, the freezing doesn't affect it. And so, there is that is somebody not going to buy from us because of that? Maybe. Does McDonald's freeze their hamburgers? Probably. But I remember Wendy's always went with the fresh, never frozen, but McDonald's is still on top, like it is, people are buying the most, from what I've seen, and I'm very limited experience, right? But it's not, you need a good, consistent product, but you don't need the best product. I do look at our reviews compared to Crumbles though, in our Utah stores, they're all higher. Like I think we have a better product, or the customers at least think we have a better product. But like, who's got the best hamburger? It's not McDonald's. Does Taco Bell have the best Mexican, or does Panda have the best Chinese? Like, no, it's about the branding, the quality control, the consistency for the customer. Just have a really good, consistent product. And I think that's what we're delivering on much better than anybody else in the space.
About the system.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like at the end of the day, like you're different products, right? So, better, not better, you have a different product offering, and there's a massive addressable market nationwide, worldwide. And so, there's going to be, there can't only be one cookie location anyway, or store in a town, in a geographic area. You need multiple choices. Right. And so at the end of the day, I think of like McDonald's and Burger King, they're across the street from each other, and they rise together, actually, right? You think about, the fact that people have the choice. Competition drives the product up, and the awareness of just cookie brands in general. So I think it's a positive either way.
Yeah. Let the consumer decide, let the entrepreneur decide.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Where can they find you? And any last thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with, Bennett?
No, I think we covered it all, and maybe I should be a little bit more nice. The first month I was like, okay, this is funny. But now they're like doubling down and tripling down on the lawsuit. I'm like, you guys, let's just go to friendly competition. And if we violate a trademark, we will change anything. If there's actual merit to the suit, like, yes, 100%, but there is not here. So like, let's just go back to friendly competition. And more cookies is just brand. More people will buy cookies, right? Like Starbucks, how many companies came after Starbucks and more people are used to paying $5 for coffee. So anyways, to find me, my website is the best. So Bennett Maxwell, BENNETT MAXWELL. And from there, BennettMaxwell.com. Sorry. From there, you can there's a link to go over and inquire about franchising, kind of learning a little bit more about that. But also I post pretty regularly, try to do it daily, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, about tips and tricks, typically just general business, but try to put out as much as value as I can. So yeah, that's the best way to connect with me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Founders Podcast.
If you want our help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business to anything in between, shoot us an email at franchisefounders@gmail.com.